A very happy morning, happy afternoon, happy evening based on what time you're watching this lecture. Friends, now let us move on to the next part of your classification of goods in customs, where we are going to focus on your import of goods being imported at concessional rate. Supposing the rate of duty on imported goods is 20%, now you are importing at, say, at reduced rate 10% or 0%, either partially exempted or fully exempted. Friends, our entire discussion will be on your customs import of goods at concessional rate of duty rules 2017. In short, we can call these rules as IGCR rules. IGCR rules, import of goods at concessional rate. IGCR, import of goods at concessional rate. The entire name is customs, open bracket, import of goods at concessional rate of duty, close bracket, rules 2017. So we can call it as IGCR rules from now onwards. Now friends, first of all you have to understand that when these rules are applicable. So applicability of these set of rules is defined, is given in your rule 2. Rule 2 tells that when these rules are applicable. When these rules are applicable. So it tells that, let us take an example to understand that. Supposing you are importing fabric. Supposing you are importing fabric, that is import of fabric. That is import of fabric, which basically attracts import duty at say 20%. Which basically attracts import duty at say 20%. But there is an exemption notification which tells that you need not pay import duty at 20%. Pay say import duty at 10%. Or no import duty, fully exempted, or no import duty, that is import duty at 0%. That is an exemption notification which tells that either you can pay import duty at 10%, partial exemption notification, or import duty at 0%, full exemption notification. Full exemption notification. Now friends, understand that what this exemption notification is telling. This exemption notification is giving me either partial exemption or full exemption, but that's a condition. That's a condition. Now this condition tells that the fabric that you are importing should be used for manufacturing. Should be used for manufacturing, say military uniforms. Say military uniforms. Only and only military uniforms. Indian military uniforms. So that is the condition. So you are importing fabric at lesser rate, either partially exempted 10% or fully exempted 0%, but you are making a promise that you will be using that fabric only for manufacturing military uniforms. So obviously when you are making a promise, you have to give a bond. You have to give a bond. And friends, this exemption notification itself tells that for procedure, please follow IGCR rules. For procedure, please follow import of goods at concessional rate of duty rules. So for procedure, this exemption notification should give reference to your IGCR rules. Friends, always exemption notifications are given under section 25. Right. Now, what if you don't fulfill the condition? Again, recovery of duty with interest will be that. That is also given in the same rules. But here basically understand that first of all you are talking about exemption notification. First of all, we are talking about exemption notification issued under section 25 by the central government. The exemption notification provides exemption on import of goods, either partial exemption notification or full exemption notification, but with the condition that the imported goods should be used for manufacturing particular product or providing particular output service. Here I have taken the example of manufacturing, but it can be telling that this imported goods should be used for providing particular output services. Either these imported goods should be used for manufacturing a particular product, or these imported goods should be used for providing particular output service. And this exemption notification itself tells that for procedural matters, please refer to IGCR rules. So that exemption notification, which is a conditional exemption notification, which is based on end use of the imported goods, that itself tells that for procedural matter, please refer to IGCR rules. Friends, these types of exemption notifications are actually called as end use based exemption notification. First of all, these exemption notifications are conditional, and the condition is based on the end use of the imported goods. What is the use of imported goods that you are doing? Either the use of imported goods should be manufacturing a particular product or providing a particular service. So these types of exemption notifications are called as end use based exemption notification. In a nutshell, we can conclude that these set of rules you have to follow whenever there are exemption notification which are based on end use of the imported goods, which they are technically called as end use based exemption notification. And whenever you have end use based exemption notification, you have to follow import of goods at concessional rate of duty rules 2017. So basically these rules are applicable where there are exemption notification which are technically end use based exemption notification. The imported goods should be used either for manufacturing a particular product or providing a particular output service, and there in that scenario you have to follow the procedure given in this IGCR rules. Friends, that is what is given in your rule 2. Now rule 3, friends, is talking about certain definitions. If you see rule 2, friends, carefully, it is telling that this set of rules, IGCR rule, is applicable for an importer who is taking the benefit of an exemption notification which is issued under section 25(1) of Customs Act, and the imported good should be used either for manufacturing a particular commodity or providing a particular output service. And in that scenario, the exemption notification are technically nothing but end use based exemption notification. The exemption notification should also tell that please follow the procedure given in these set of rules. So the exemption notification should give reference to IGCR rules. Only then you are going to refer IGCR rules. Now rule 3 talks about certain definitions. Now, can the benefit of concessional rate of duty is it applicable only for raw materials or also applicable for capital goods? Friends, the benefit of import at reduced rate is also applicable for capital goods. You can import the capital goods at concessional rate. So the benefit of end use based exemption notification is also for capital goods. Now what is meant by capital goods, friends? Capital goods means those goods which are capitalized in the books of accounts of the importer. Simple definition. Capital goods means those goods which are capitalized in the books of accounts of the importer. A very simple meaning of capital goods. The point that you have to understand is capital goods can also be imported at concessional rate, reduced rate, right? So end use based exemption notification can also be for capital goods. Now friends, we have understood that what should be the end use of imported goods. The end use of the imported item should be either manufacture of commodity or provision of output service. So now friends, you have to understand what is meant by manufacture and what is meant by output service. Now when you talk about manufacture means processing of raw material or inputs by the importer in any manner that results into emergence of a new product which is having distinct name, character, distinct name, nature and character or use. Distinct nature or character or use, rather nature and character is on the same, distinct name, character or use, and the term manufacturer shall be construed accordingly. Now friends, what are they trying to tell? When you're talking about manufacture, it should be resulting into a new product. You're doing a process which is resulting into a new product with a different name, character, use. It should result into a new product with a different name, character and use. Supposing you're importing fabric and you're dyeing the fabric and it becomes dyed fabric. You're just doing the process of dyeing. Is it manufacture? You're doing a process, but is it manufacture? No friends, this process does not amount to manufacture. Why? When you talk about the end product, it is not having, it is not having distinct name, character and use. The distinct name, character and use is absent. It is not having distinct name, character and use. That is not there. Fabric is still fabric. Yes, you are doing some process, but fabric still remains fabric. The usage is still the same. So this process does not amount to manufacture. And if that is a scenario, you are not fulfilling, you are not talking about these particular set of rules. When you are talking about these particular set of rules, The end use should be based on what? You should be manufacturing a particular product or providing a particular service. So you should be actually doing manufacturing work. So if you are doing mere process, then you cannot take the benefit of this exemption notification, and obviously you are not covered by IGCR rules. In the second scenario, friends, supposing you are importing fabric. You are importing fabric and you are talking about converting into, say, shirt. Again, friends, you are doing a process. In this case, this process is amounting to manufacture. Now this process is amounting to manufacture. Why? Both fabric and shirt now are having distinct. You are doing a process which is resulting into a new product which is having distinct name, character and use. Which is having distinct name, character and use. Therefore, this process amounts to manufacture, unlike the previous case. Right. So what is meant by manufacture? Not mere processing. Manufacture means processing on the raw material or input by the importer in any manner that is resulting into a new product. That new product should have distinct or different name, different character or nature and different use. And accordingly, manufacture will be construed accordingly. That is the meaning of manufacture. Now friends, either your imported goods, the end use is manufacturing something, or the end use is providing some output service. What is meant by output service? Friends, output service here means supply of any service but other than after sales service. You are importing the goods, using the imported goods for providing any kind of service. So you are importing laptops for providing, say, your technical services, technical testing services. You are importing laptops and providing, say, technical testing services. You are importing healthcare instruments and providing healthcare services. You are providing healthcare and you are importing big machineries which are required in hospitals, and you are providing healthcare services. It can be provision of any service but not after sales service. But we are not talking about after sales service. Only service that cannot be covered here is after sales service using the imported goods. I am giving you practical examples that you are importing, say, new equipment with at a concession rate, and you are promising that you are going to use that equipment for providing healthcare services. So you are importing goods including capital goods, and you are promising that you will be using that goods or capital goods for providing healthcare services. Or you are importing a machinery and you are telling that I will be using this machinery for printing purposes, only for printing purposes. So you are talking about using the imported goods for giving some service, but that service should not be after sales service. Now friends, an important change has come in, that when I am talking about manufacture, if I am importing goods and I am doing manufacture of goods, I need not manufacture it myself. I can ask my job worker to manufacture. Supposing there is a condition that I have to import the fabric and make it into military uniforms. Necessarily, I need not make into military uniforms. I can give it to my job worker and my job worker can manufacture military uniforms. Now, what is meant by job worker? My job worker will do a simple treatment or process of manufacture. He may do a simple process. It may not be amounting to manufacture. He is doing some work. Because finally, he may do part of the work, again I may do part of the work, that is amounting to manufacture. But he necessarily should not do the entire work. So, job worker is doing any treatment or process of manufacture which is consistent with the exemption notification undertaken by a person belonging to the importer, but he should not be engaged in job working of gold, jewelry or articles thereof, precious metals and stones. So you are talking about job working of all sectors excluding job working of jewelry sector. Here we are not talking about job worker of jewelry sector. If it is jewelry sector and if there is an end user based exemption notification jewelry, you cannot give it to job worker. For all the other sectors, when I am importing fabric, right, I can do manufacturing myself, or I can ask my job worker to do the entire process or part of the process, right. So job worker will be doing treatment process of manufacture, which is again consistent with the exemption notification undertaken by a person on the goods belonging to importer. The goods are not belonging to him, the goods are belonging to the importer. But here job working is not allowed in one sector. If at all there is an exemption notification for jewelry sector, you cannot use the help of job worker. So except gold, jewelry or articles thereof, and precious metals and stones. Oh, how to understand this? You're talking about a scenario where you're importing fabric. You're importing fabric. That is import of fabric. That is import of fabric, and you have promised that you will be using that fabric for manufacturing military uniforms. So import duty at 20% is not there. Say there is a partial exemption notification, import duty will be at 10%, or full exemption notification, import duty will be at 0%. It will be either partial exemption notification or full exemption notification. Now importer, what importer is doing? Importer is sending the fabric to the job worker. So importer is sending the fabric to the job worker. Job worker is doing some work. Again it is returned to the importer. So supposing importer is sending fabric to the job worker. Job worker is merely doing dyeing work. Fabric is converted to dyed fabric. Again dyed fabric is sent to the importer, and importer finally converts the dyed fabric into military uniforms. Now what is this trying to tell? The fabric was always imported by the importer, and he promised that he will be using the fabric for manufacturing military uniforms. Therefore there was a partial exemption notification or full exemption notification, because this exemption notification said that fabric should be used for manufacturing military uniforms. Oh, but whether importer is manufacturing military uniforms fully? No. Importer is now giving this fabric to job worker. Job worker is doing part of the work. Fabric to dyed fabric. Friends, job worker may not do manufacturing work. He is doing any treatment process or manufacture. He may do a treatment process or manufacture. So job worker need not do entire work. He is doing only part of the work. Now dyed fabric is returned back to the importer. And importer is converting that into military uniforms. Friends, finally you have to understand that that is manufacture. That is clearly fabric became military uniforms. So that is clearly manufacture. So finally importer has done manufacturing work together. Job worker did some work, he did some work, finally that is manufacturing. But job worker necessarily need not do manufacturing, he may do a small work, treatment process or manufacture. But what are they trying to tell? Job working, when you are importing certain goods and you are promising to manufacture certain goods, either you can do it, or your job worker can do it, or combinedly both of you can do it. When you are importing some goods and getting an exemption and you are promising to manufacture something, either you can manufacture it or entirely job worker can manufacture it, or both together can manufacture it. Both together, both the process together can amount to manufacture. But if it is end-use based exemption notification on jewelry sector, and if you are importing say bullion, only and only you should do the work. When there is an exemption notification on jewelry sector, end-use based exemption notification on jewelry sector, you cannot take the help of job worker. When there is end-use based exemption notification, where it is talking about manufacturing, you are going to manufacture something, where you have to manufacture a particular output. Now normally, and special cases, normally that manufacturing work can be undertaken by importer along with job worker, either entirely importer or job worker, or importer and job worker together. But if it is jewelry sector, it has to be undertaken only by importer. He cannot engage job worker. So normal sectors, that manufacturing can be done by either importer or job worker, or importer along with job worker. Both are doing few process. But in jewelry sector, when you are talking about in jewelry sector, if there is an end-use based exemption notification, he cannot take the help of job worker. Only he has to fulfill it. only he has to fulfill the same. So that you have to understand. End use based exemption notification, which is telling that you have to manufacture something. Normal cases, that manufacturing can be done fully by importer or fully by job worker or by importer and job worker. Jewelry sector, only and only importer has to do it. He cannot take the help of job worker. Right. So that is the understanding of all these definitions and the concept. Now friends, your rule 4, your rule 5, your rule 6. Rule 4, rule 5, rule 6, rule 6a. We are going to understand all these 4 rules, 4, 5, 6 and 6a with the help of 2 pictorial presentations. Friends, first our discussion or first our focus will be on your rule 2. Rule 1 is only title, forget about it. Rule 1 over, rule 2 over, rule 3 over. Rule 1 is not relevant, title, we forget about it. Rule 2 and rule 3, application and definitions we have completed. Now friends, we are focusing on your rule 4, 5, 6. Rule 4, rule 5, rule 6 is covered here. Right, thereafter we will be talking about 6a. 6a talks about job worker, something about job worker. Now, understand the flow, things will be very simple. Numbering is also given. Now, well, let us go with the flow. Now, step number 1. When you have to follow this procedure, rule 2 tells that you have to follow this procedure. This step number 1 we have already discussed. You are going to see this IGCR rules, import of goods at concessional rate of duty rules 2017, only when there is an exemption notification under section 25, which tells that you have to use the imported goods for manufacturing output or for providing output service, except all services are covered except your after sales service. So rule 2 we have already completed. So when is the importer going to follow these rules? Importer has to follow these rules if there is an end use based exemption notification under section 25, which tells that you are going to get an exemption on imported goods if you are going to manufacture a particular commodity or provide a particular output service other than after sales service. In that scenario, importer of goods, this importer of goods is going to follow IGCR rules. This importer will use the imported goods either for manufacturing a commodity or for providing a particular output service. So this importer can be importer has to be a manufacturer or a service provider. It is implied that this importer is either a manufacturer or a service provider. Now what he has to do? He has to make an application to ACDC of customs having jurisdiction over his premises. He has to make an application to Assistant Commissioner, Deputy Commissioner of Customs having jurisdiction over his manufacturing premises or service providing premises. Right. So he has to make an application, he has to submit something, he has to give prior information. Now friends, we are talking about step number 2. Now rule 4 tells that, rule 3's definition we have completed. Rule 4 tells that this importer who is either a manufacturer because he is going to use imported goods for manufacturing something, or a service provider because he is going to use the imported goods for providing any output service other than after sales service, he has to give a prior information about what? What are the information that he has to give? He has to give name and address of both importer as well as job worker. If there is any job worker, then job worker. Name and address he has to give. His name and his job worker's name and address he has to give. Nature and description of imported goods. What is the imported goods that he is going to import? He has to give nature as well as description. And if he is a manufacturer, he has to give what will be the goods produced as well as process undertaken. What will be the final product and the process that he is going to undertake. And if he is a service provider, he has to tell what is the output service he is going to provide. So these are the 4 informations that he has to give in advance. Name and address of himself and his job worker, if any. Nature and description of the imported goods that he is importing. Imported goods that he is importing at lesser rate. If he is a manufacturer, he has to give the output, the goods which are going to be produced and the process undertaken. If he is a service provider, he has to tell what is the output service that he is going to render. So I can write it as 3A, 3B rather than writing 3 and 4. We can write it as 3A. If he is a manufacturer, goods produced and the process undertaken. If he is a service provider, output service provided. So this information he has to give before importation of goods is happening. he is showing his intention to take the benefit of the exemption notification. He is telling that, see, I am the importer who is going to use this exemption notification, which is based on end use of this imported goods. He has to tell name and address of himself and his job worker, if any. If there is no job worker, no need to give information. What is the nature and description of the imported goods? In our example, fabric. What is the process and the output goods produced that he is going to manufacture, if he is a manufacturer, or if he is a service provider, what is the output service he is going to provide? Right, that is the prior advance information he has to give. Advance information before importation, he has to give advance information. That is entirely which is said in your rule 4. So we are done with your rule 4. Now there is a rule called as rule 5. Now, rule 5 tells that he has to further, this is general information. Rule 4 talks about general information. Rule 5 talks about specific information. He has to give information in 2 copies. You can talk about rule 4 in this way. Rule 4, friends, talk about general information. Rule 5 talks about specific information. Specific information. Right, now what is the information that he has to give in 2 copies? Specific information. Estimated quantity and the value of the goods to be imported. What he has already said, what is the nature and description of goods to be imported. Now he has to tell specific information. What is the estimated quantity as well as the value of the goods that he is going to import. In our example, fabric. So what is the quantity of fabric and value of fabric that he is going to import. Now other specific information. What is the exemption notification number? Particulars of exemption notification number. Then what is the port of import in which that fabric is going to be imported for the next 1 year. That importation of fabric should happen within the next 1 year. Plus he is going to give a bond along with surety or security. Why, friends, he is going to give a bond along with surety or security? Friends, he is promising that he is going to use the fabric for manufacturing military uniforms. If he is fulfilling his promise, no worries. He has paid lesser duty, government is happy. But if he is not fulfilling his promise, he has to pay the differential duty with interest. And that is the reason he has to give a bond, and bond is always along with surety or security. Right. Now what is the specific information, friends, that he is giving here? 1. Estimated quantity and value of the imported goods. So he is going to import fabric. He is going to tell what is the quantity of fabric and value of fabric that he is going to import, and he has to mention the exemption notification due to which there is an exemption on fabric. Plus he has to mention the port of import. Supposing he is going to import at Mumbai port, he has to mention where he is going to import. Why? You will understand why he has to give these details, and you will understand in some time. He has to mention the port of import where the consignment is going to come, and that fabric should come. If he is giving information today, that fabric should be imported within next 1 year. If he is giving information today, specific information today as per rule 5, that fabric should be imported at Mumbai port within next 1 year. Now you may wonder why he has to give the details of port. You will understand in some time. Plus he has to execute a bond. Along with that, he is required to execute a bond, and friends, bond is always along with either surety or security. Surety or security. So rule 4 is advance or prior information, general information. Rule 5 is also advance information in 2 copies, but specific information. But it is specific information, and this time he is giving bond along with surety or security. Right. Friends, if you look at rule 4, general information is only normal, one time one copy he will give. Specific information he will give 2 copies. Specific information he is going to give 2 copies. Information in 2 copies. Now his assistant commissioner, deputy commissioner is having general information, that he has given, plus specific information as per rule 5, but 2 copies. Now that specific information that ACDC, this assistant commissioner, deputy commissioner is having, what is he going to do? You have to understand now point number 3 and point number 4 together. 3 and 4 together. When this information, friends, is given, specific information is given, rule 5 talks about specific information. When the specific information is given, this importer will give 2 copies of specific information to his assistant commissioner, deputy commissioner having jurisdiction over his premises. Supposing this importer is in Pune, he will give these 2 copies of information, specific information, to his ACDC of customs, right? And this importer will give 1 copy of specific information, at to assistant commissioner, deputy commissioner, to assistant commissioner, deputy commissioner at custom station. In our example, that custom station was Mumbai because goods are going to be imported at Mumbai. In our example, if the importer is in Pune, he is giving general information to his officer in Pune plus specific information 2 copies to his officer in Pune. Now let us understand this. Supposing I am the importer, to my officer ACDC of customs having jurisdiction over my premises, I am going to give 1 copy of general information in advance, 2 copies of specific information in advance, 2 copies. Plus I am going to give 1 copy of specific information as per rule 5 also to ACDC of customs where the goods are actually going to be imported, that is at Mumbai. That is at Mumbai. Now the officer having jurisdiction over my premises, that is importer's premises, who is having 2 copies of specific information, will forward 1 copy of specific information to ACDC at custom station, that is ACDC at Mumbai port. Right. So if at all this flow has to be made more clear, we can just see this flow. Importer, his assistant commissioner, deputy commissioner having jurisdiction over his premises, and assistant commissioner, deputy commissioner at custom station having jurisdiction over his premises at custom station. Supposing in our example we took importers at Pune will have even ICD, inland container depot, is also custom station. So ACDC having jurisdiction over his premises, that is Pune, but this import is going to be done at Mumbai. Right. Now what will be the flow? This importer first will give general information. Rule 4. General information. All is advanced information. General information. Name and address of himself and job worker. What is the nature and description of imported goods? What is the goods that is going to produce, or what is the service that is going to provide? General information. 1 copy. General information is only in 1 copy. Thereafter, friends, he is going to give specific information, 2 copies. Specific information, now very detailed information. What is the estimated quantity and value of the imported goods, that is fabric? What is the name of what is the number of the exemption notification because of which he is going to claim exemption, and what is the port of import that is going to import the goods, and that import should happen within the next 1 year. Along with, he is also going to give bond. This bond will be only given to his officer. Specific information plus bond. Specific information is 3 items. Estimated quantity and value of imported goods plus you are talking about your particulars of exemption notification, and friends, you are talking about port of import at which the goods are going to be imported for a period not more than 1 year, plus bond, and bond is always a surety and security. So bond will be only given to his ACDC having jurisdiction over his premises. This is going to happen second step. And when he is giving that specific information 2 copies, he will also give specific information 1 copy to assistant commissioner, deputy commissioner at Mumbai, because fabric is actually going to be imported at Mumbai. Now this ACDC having jurisdiction over the premises of the importer will forward 1 copy of specific information. He had earlier 2, now this 2 will reduce to 1 because 1 copy he will forward. This 2 will reduce to 1 after his forwarding. Now that will ensure cross check. That will actually ensure cross check. So totally this importer gave 3 specific information, 2 to his officer and 1 to ACDC at custom station, and his officer ACDC forwarded, out of 2 copies, his ACDC forwarded 1 copy to ACDC at custom station. Now why this procedure? So that ACDC at Mumbai port is ensured that assistant commissioner, deputy commissioner having jurisdiction over his premises has also received that information, and he has also received the bond. So that is to double check. That is nothing but a cross checking which is that. Friends, this general information was all by virtue of your rule 4. and the specific information was all by virtue of your rule 5. Was all by virtue of your rule 5. Right, this till this process is clear. Now, this is all information given in advance. After goods are actually imported, now importation is actually happening. Now importation is actually happening. After importation is done, all till here the information is before import. Now after information is done, as per rule 6, importer has to intimate within 2 days to his jurisdictional customs officer. This jurisdictional customs officer, friends, is nothing but the same ACDC. It may be the same ACDC, right? So within the flow chart cannot be given otherwise, therefore we have just made the picture another way. The moment the goods are imported as per rule 6, this is after till now it was all before importation. After importation, within 2 days of receipt of goods, intimation, just intimation that I have received the goods. Just an intimation to his assistant commissioner, deputy commissioner having jurisdiction over his premises, telling that I have received the fabric and I imported the fabric at a reduced rate. Just an information, right? Now this information will be given. Rule 6 also talks about an additional point. What is that additional point? Rule 6 tells that now the importer is required to maintain some account and file some return. See, till now the advance information was given, general information, specific information, bond was also given. Now the goods are actually imported. Within 2 days I have to inform my ACDC having jurisdiction over my premises that I have received the goods, I have received the fabric at on paying import duty at a reduced rate, right, within 2 days. And my officer should be convinced that actually I am using the fabric only for manufacturing military uniforms. So I have to maintain some accounts and I have to file some return to prove my officer that I am using the fabric only and only for manufacturing military uniforms. Now I have to convince my ACDC having jurisdiction over my premises that I am using this fabric which is imported at a reduced rate only for manufacturing military uniforms. For that purposes, I have to maintain accounts, particular accounts, and I have to file certain returns to my assistant commissioner, deputy commissioner. Now, what all records I have to maintain? I have to maintain bill of entry wise records. When I am maintaining records, I have to maintain records bill of entry wise, each import wise. For each import, I have to maintain records of subject goods. Subject goods means, in our example, subject goods is fabric. What is the quantity and value of subject goods imported? What is the quantity and value of fabric imported? What is the quantity of subject goods consumed for specific purposes? That is, what is the quantity of fabric used for manufacturing military uniforms? What is the quantity of subject goods which is sent to job worker along with the nature of job worker? Which means how much fabric was sent to job worker for doing some work and what work was done by the job worker. And after job worker is doing the work, what is the subject goods received after job worker? So when I am asking my job worker to do some work, he is going to return back the goods. What is the quantity of subject goods which are re-exported? We are going to see a rule where I have an option to re-export the goods. If I have got excess quantity of fabric or defective quantity of fabric, I can re-export. If I have re-exported something, I have to give that details also. And what is the quantity of fabric in stock? So if I talk subject goods is nothing but your fabric. So what all information they are expecting? So you are talking about quantity and value. If you look at the information, everywhere they are focusing on quantity except the first point, quantity and value of the subject goods imported. So what are they telling? You are talking about subject goods being fabric because I have got exemption notification on fabric. So that they are telling that when you are talking about your fabric, they are only talking about your fabric. They are only talking about your fabric. What is the quantity and value of fabric that is being imported, that you have imported? Then what is the quantity of fabric that you have used for manufacturing military uniforms? What is the quantity of fabric that you have used for manufacturing military uniforms? What is the quantity of fabric that you have sent to job worker, and along with the nature of job worker, what the job worker is going to do? What is the quantity of fabric returned by job worker? Job worker returning back the goods. If you have sent the goods to job worker, he will return back the goods after doing some work. What is the quantity of fabric that you have re-exported? that you have re-exported, plus what is the closing quantity? What is the closing quantity of fabric? They are going to keep the track on this fabric, so that they will ensure finally whatever fabric was that, they will ensure that you are using it for manufacturing military uniforms. So these accounts, these are accounts that you have to maintain, and friends, these accounts have to be maintained bill of entry wise. For each bill of entry you have to maintain it separately. So if I am importing 10 consignments, 10 bill of entries, I have to maintain it each bill of entry wise. Each bill of entry wise I have to maintain the same. Right. And in addition to it, all these information I will be filing in a return. I will be filing a quarterly return. I will be filing a quarterly return to my ACDC of Customs after the quarter is over, within the end of 10 days, which means that if at all you are talking about April to June quarter, 10th of July. If you are talking about July to September quarter, 10th of October. 10th of October. October to December quarter, 10th of January. January to March quarter, 10th of April, so on. So I have to give quarterly return. I have to maintain accounts of fabric bill of entry wise that we have discussed, plus I have to file a quarterly return 10th after the end of the quarter. After the end of the quarter, I have to file a return as well. Now this is to ensure, this accounts and returns is only to ensure that I am using the fabric for manufacturing for manufacturing military uniforms in our example, or I am using the imported goods for manufacturing a product, or for providing a particular output service as promised in the exemption notification. As promised in the exemption notification. Friends, this is all about your Rule 4, which was all about your general information. Rule 5, specific information and bond. Rule 6, after importation, you are talking about intimation. 1.2 days, within 2 days you have to intimate, plus maintenance of accounts and filing of return. Rule 6. Rule 6. So that is all about your Rule 4, Rule 5, Rule 6. Now friends, as discussed, there is a rule called as Rule 6A, which actually talks about if at all importer is promising to do a manufacturing work, either he can manufacture it or he can ask the job worker to manufacture it, or both importer and job worker together can manufacture it. Importer is using the services of job worker. If at all, this rule will come into picture only in a scenario where importer is taking the help of job worker. Otherwise, Rule 6A is of no use. Otherwise, Rule 6A is of no use. This will come into picture only when the importer is taking the help of job worker to fulfill his promise to manufacture a particular output. Right. Otherwise, this Rule 6A will not come. Right. We have discussed that when you are talking about manufacturing, either importer can himself do the manufacturing work, or his job worker can do it, or both importer and job worker together can do it. Right. Now, what are they talking about? How the documentation will go between the importer and the job worker. So friends, you are talking about your importer of goods who is sending the goods to job worker, and this job working is allowed in all the sectors except jewelry sector that we have discussed in the definition. Right. And you are talking about job worker who is doing some treatment process or manufacturing. He can do a normal treatment or a process, or he can do manufacturing as well. Right. So importer who is intending to send the goods to job worker, job working is allowed in all sector except jewelry, and job worker is going to do some treatment process or manufacture. Now step number 1. It is everything is in terms of Rule 6A. Prior information should be given. 2 copies prior information. Now importer will give prior information to his jurisdictional officer having jurisdiction over importer's premises. So importer is communicating to his officer, his jurisdictional customs officer. He is going to give prior information in 2 copies. What is that information that he is going to give? His intention to send the goods to job work. So he is telling that I am not going to do the manufacturing work entirely myself. I am going to ask my job worker to do some work. What is the name and address of the job worker? What is the nature and description of job work to be carried on? Which means what is the work that exactly job worker will do? What is the work that you are going to do, and what is the exact work that job worker is going to do on the imported goods? What is the quantity and description of the subject goods that is intended to be sent to job worker? So this information will be prior information, but it will be sent in 2 copies. Again, you will understand why 2 copies. This information will be again advanced information, but in 2 copies. 2 copies. Here there is no general and specific, it is both general as well as specific. his intention is general thing, his intention that he is interested in sending the goods to job worker, name and address of job worker, nature and description of job work is all general information. So here it is general, first 3 points, and fourth point is specific. What is the quantity and description of the goods to be sent to job worker is specific. The moment you talk about quantity, it is specific. So here it is both general as well as special information in 2 copies, and that too prior. That too it is prior information. What all information? His intention, the name and address of the job worker, the nature and description of job work that job worker is going to do on the imported goods for manufacturing work, and quantity and the description of the goods that are being sent to the job worker. Now out of 2 copies, 2 copies are sent. Out of 2 copies, one copy ACDC having jurisdiction, officer having jurisdiction over the importer's premises will forward 1 copy to the officer having jurisdiction over the job worker's premises. So he is going to forward 1 copy to the jurisdictional customs officer of job worker. Jurisdictional customs officer of importer now has got 2 copies. Importer has given 2 copies to his officer, and his jurisdictional customs officer will forward 1 copy to the jurisdictional customs officer of the job worker, so that job worker's officer is also aware that job worker is going to get some goods from importer and he is going to do some work. So that is point number 1 and point number 2. Step number 1 and step number 2. That is all advanced information. 2 copies I will give to my officer, and my officer will forward 1 copy to the job worker's officer. Now thereafter what will happen? Importer will send the goods to the job worker under challan, under his challan. So there is no supply, therefore delivery challan. The goods will be sent by the importer. Say for example fabric will be sent by the importer to the job worker under importer's delivery challan, and job worker will do the work, and return the goods to the importer, either to the importer or to another job worker. So job worker will either give back the goods to the importer, or he can give the goods to another job worker who will give back the goods to the importer. Now challan will be either job worker's challan or importer's challan duly endorsed by the job worker. Now understand, job worker can return back the goods to the another job worker, or importer return back the goods to importer, and it can happen with job worker's independent challan or the same importer's original challan which is endorsed by job worker, So when job worker is returning back, he can give his own challan, or he can use the importer's challan and just do the endorsement. Do the endorsement that yes, I received the goods from importer under his importer's challan. Now I am returning back the goods to the importer on the same challan. Just do the endorsement that I am returning back the goods. Either job worker can return back the goods under his own challan, or using the importer's challan endorse it and send back the goods. And either job worker can send the goods to the importer, or he can send to another job worker, that another job worker will give the goods to the importer. Right. So that is step number 3 and 4. Now friends, we are talking about 5A and 5B. There is something called as 5A, what are the obligations of job worker, and step 5B, what are the obligations of the importer. Obligations of the job worker. 5B, here it talking about what are the obligations of the importer. Now what are the obligations of the job worker? Job worker has to maintain the account of receipt of goods, what manufacturing process is undertaken, and if obviously whenever you are doing job work, there will be waste generated if any during such process. So he has to tell what amount, what quantity he has received, what work he has done, and what is the waste that is being generated during the process, and that account should be given to the jurisdictional officer as and when demanded. So simple accounts he has to maintain. What is the quantity of fabric that he has received from importer? What is the work that he has done on fabric, say fabric to dyed fabric, or he can do fabric to shirt also, he can manufacture the entire thing also, right? And if at all there is any waste and scrap, what is the waste generated during that process? He has to keep that accounts ready. If the officer is demanding it, whenever he is demanding, he has to produce those accounts. So that is the obligation of the job worker. Now what are the obligations of the importer? The obligations of the importer are very serious and important. maximum period for which the goods can be with the job worker shall be 6 months from the date of issue of challan. Which means when importer is giving the goods to job worker should do the work and return back the goods within 6 months. Should return back the goods within 6 months. So when importer is not doing work or he is doing partial work and part of the work is done by job worker, when he is giving the goods to job worker, he has to get back within 6 months. He has to get back within 6 months. If at all importer is unable to establish that the goods which were sent to job worker have been used for the purpose that was intended, has been used as promised, in that scenario his jurisdictional officer will take necessary action as per rule 8 and 18. Which means if the goods were sent to job worker and job worker did not do the work what was intended, it will be importer who is liable, not the job worker. So file any customs will catch hold of the importer and not the job worker. So first point is important point, second point is again very important point. First point is telling that if importer is sending any goods to job worker, make sure that he is getting back the goods within 6 months. Point number 1. Point number 2, importer should make sure that whenever he is giving the goods to job worker is doing the work that was expected from him and that was given as information to his officer. If job worker is not doing the work that was actually promised or the goods are never returned back, either job worker is not doing the work as promised or the job worker is not at all returning back the goods, action will be taken against the importer for the duty. So jurisdictional officer will take action against the importer as per rule 8 and rule 8A, which we are going to discuss, and not on the job worker. So import duty liability will be collected from the importer if job worker is doing some job worker is not acting accordingly, not acting according to the provisions, action will be taken against the importer, not the job worker, because they want to fix the final responsibility on the importer and not on the job worker. So that is rule 6A. This the entire thing will come only when importer is asking job worker to do some manufacturing work. First point, understand that this will come only when the end use based exemption notification is dealing with using the imported goods for manufacturing something. Now either importer can manufacture himself or job worker can manufacture, or both together can do total manufacturing together, put together. Whenever job worker is coming into picture, only then rule 6A will come into picture. Right. So our rule 4, rule 5, rule 6 we have seen in the first chart. Rule 6A we have seen in the next chart. Now friends, let us see the other small rules. Other small rules. Now there is a rule 7. Rule 7. Now what is rule 7 telling? Rule 7 is telling that if at all you are talking about an importer who is having unutilized goods or defective imported goods. Supposing fabric was imported and there is some unutilized fabric or defective fabric, he wants to re-export. He can re-export within 6 months from the date of import. Obviously, condition is permission of the jurisdictional deputy commissioner, assistant commissioner, and another condition, value of re-export should be more than, should not be less than, means should be more than or equal to value of the value at the time of import. So what are they telling? If I have got excess fabric, unutilized fabric or defective fabric, if I have got excess fabric imported or defective fabric imported, and which I cannot use it for manufacturing military uniforms, either I have got excess quantity of fabric or defective quantity of fabric, which I am not going to use it for manufacturing military uniforms, I can re-export it. I can re-export it. Condition number 1, I have to re-export it within 6 months. Condition number 2, I have to take the permission of my ACDC. Condition number 3, when I am re-exporting, my value of re-export should not be less than the value of import. So I should re-export either at the same value of import or more than the value of import. So my re-export value should be more than or equal to the value of import. So that is the point. Because in this scenario, understand that this unutilized fabric, that is excess fabric or defective fabric, I will never be using for manufacturing military uniform. So it is better that I re-export the same. Now, next scenario. Now it may happen that unutilized fabric or defective fabric, I am not in a position to re-export. Highly possible. I have got unutilized fabric, excess fabric or defective fabric, which I am not in a position to re-export. In that scenario, with the permission of my deputy commissioner, assistant commissioner, what I can do? I can, within 6 months of the date of import, I can clear it within India. I can clear it within India, right, which it is clear that I am not going to use it for manufacturing military uniforms. I can clear it within India within 6 months. What I have to do? I have to pay the differential import duty. Import duty. What is differential duty? Import duty which would have been there without exemption notification minus import duty that is already paid after exemption notification, along with interest. As per section 28AA, that is, you are talking about 15% interest from the date of importation till the date of actual payment. Now friends, what are they trying to tell? If at all I have imported fabric and that is unutilized fabric, I have imported fabric, either that is unutilized fabric or that is defective fabric, which I am very clear that I cannot use it for manufacturing military uniforms because I cannot fulfill the promise. I have imported them not at 20% but at 10%. If import duty would have been at 20%, I would have paid say 20 lakhs import duty. Now I have not paid 20 lakhs import duty, I have paid 10 lakhs import duty. Now I have two options. Option number one, I can re-export. Option number two, I can sell in India. I can sell within India. I can use it for any purposes. And friends, in both the cases, conditions are common. Conditions are within 6 months plus permission of assistant commissioner, deputy commissioner. If this thing should happen within 6 months and with the permission of ACDC, right? If I am re-exporting, I have to take care of another condition, that my re-export value is more than or equal to my import value. In this scenario, friends, what will happen is I am not going to pay any differential import duty. Obviously, there is no question of interest. And also, friends, you have to understand that whatever import duty was paid, that will be subject to duty drawback. I'll get the duty drawback. So I have paid 10 lakhs import duty. I'll get the refund of 10 lakhs again. Nothing. I have paid 10 lakhs. Instead of paying 20 lakhs, I have paid 10 lakhs. I'll get back 10 lakhs. I'll get duty drawback. Right. So in this scenario, this is very positive scenario. What has happened? When I have imported the fabric, I have paid lesser import duty 10 lakhs. And when I am re-exporting, I should only ensure that it is within 6 months, permission of ACDC, and export value is more than import value. I am not going to pay any differential import duty, no interest. Moreover, whatever duty I have paid, I will get the refund. I will get the duty drawback of the same. Now, if I sell within India, what will happen? I have to pay differential import duty. Friends, what is differential import duty? What duty I would have paid without this exemption notification? I would have paid 20 lakhs. Minus what duty I have paid because of exemption notification. Because of exemption notification, I have paid 10 lakhs. So then now in this case, differential import duty is 10 lakhs. Supposing because of exemption notification, I have paid nothing, it would have been 20 lakhs minus 0. What duty was payable without exemption notification and what duty is paid because of exemption notification? That is differential import duty with interest at 15%. So I'll pay 10 lakhs with interest at 15%, and interest will start from which date? From the date of importation it will start till the date of actual payment it will be ending. So normal calculation, right? From the date of importation till the date of actual payment it will be there. So for interest, value will be the duty amount, that is 10 lakhs that I am going to pay. Rate of will be 15% and period will be from the date of importation till the date of actual payment. So this is going to be that. So if I don't re-export, normally I may not be in a position to re-export. In that scenario, I can sell in India. All I have to do is I have to pay the differential import duty. I have to forget the exemption notification. Without that, I would have paid 20 lakhs, but I have already paid 10 lakhs. So I'll pay differential import duty 10 lakhs. And on that 10 lakhs, I'll pay interest at 15%, starting from the date of importation till the date of actual payment. Right. Now friends, another very special point is all about capital goods. This is normal scenario. This is all about your unutilized or defective goods. Now friends, the next part is all about your capital goods. Capital goods. Now what is given here? Importer with the permission of again ACDC having jurisdiction over his premises. Now he can clear the imported capital goods. When it is said that he can clear the imported capital goods, he can sell it within India. He can clear the imported capital goods means he can sell it within India. He can clear it. He can sell it within India. But what? When he is clearing the imported capital goods, again he will pay the differential import duty. He will pay the import duty. Again, import duty, when you are talking about the import duty, friends, we are talking about without exemption notification, what would have been the duty? Minus what is already paid because of exemption notification. Differential duty always means without exemption notification, what would have been the duty? Minus after exemption notification, what is the duty that he has already paid? Differential duty along with interest. But wait, that's a special point here. This, because it is capital goods, and these capital goods were used actually for manufacturing the military uniforms, I am not going to pay entire differential import duty. That will be reduced differential import duty. That will be depreciation which will be applied on the payment on straight line method. For the first quarter, for first year, all the 4 quarters, 4% deduction will be there. For second year, all 4 quarters, 3% deduction will be there. Even for third year, all 4 quarters, 3% deduction will be there. For fourth and fifth year, 2.5% deduction will be there. That is first year 4%. For each quarter 4%. Second and third year for each quarter 3%. Fourth year and fifth year for each quarters 2.5%. And from sixth year onwards, every quarter 2%. Then there are some explanation. When you are calculating quarter, even part of the quarter will be considered as full quarter, and there is no restriction or upper limit on the same, and the depreciation will be allowed from the date when the imported goods were coming to use up to the date of its clearance. Now what are they trying to tell? We can understand this only after taking an example. Supposing capital goods were imported for manufacturing military uniforms. Capital goods are imported. Now we are talking about import of capital goods. Rather than paying import duty at 20%, import duty at 10% was paid. Supposing import duty at 20% is coming at 20 lakhs. Import duty at 20% is coming at 20 lakhs. Import duty at 10%, what he has paid is only 10 lakhs. What he has paid is only 10 lakhs. And after using the capital goods for some time, now you are actually selling the capital goods. Say selling of capital goods after you are talking about, say, 5 years 2 months. Now first, if I was talking about normal scenario, normal scenario, what would have been your answer? Your answer would have been differential duty, differential import duty, which is import duty without exemption notification minus import duty paid after exemption notification, along with interest at 15% on that differential import duty, which is 10 lakhs. Differential import duty 10 lakhs and interest on differential import duty at 15%. But this will not be the scenario. Now for capital goods, they are telling that you will not pay the entire differential duty. First you have to calculate the deduction. Now deduction is for how much? For first year deduction is 4% for each quarter. 4%, 4 quarters are there, 16%. Second year and third year, it is 3% for each quarter. 3% for each quarter. So you are talking about second and third year, you are having, if you see the rate here, just look at, yes, 3%. 3% for each quarter. Both for second year and third year they have given separately, but both for second year and third year it is 3%. So both the years together will have 8 quarters. So you're talking about 24%. How many years it has been used? 5 years 2 months. And how you got it this 5 years 2 months? From the date of importation till the date of clearance. From the date the capital goods are imported and put to use till the date of clearance. So it was used for 5 years 2 months. So you have to calculate that. From which date? From the date of importation you have to see, and till the date of clearance. You are getting 5 years 2 months. Next you are talking about 4th year and 5th year. 4th year and 5th year, friends, it is 2.5%. 2.5%, and again both 4th year and 5th year means each year will have 4 quarters, so both the years is 8 quarters. So you are getting totally 20%. And when you are talking about 6th year, that is only part of the quarter. 2 months, part of the quarter will be treated as 1 quarter. Part of the quarter will be treated as 1 quarter. So you are talking about 2% multiplied by 1. So 2%. So total depreciation or total deduction is 16 plus 24, it is 40%, plus 20, 60%, plus 2, 62%. 62% deduction will be there. Now when I tell 62% deduction will be there, differential duty will be 10 lakhs minus 62%. Differential duty you have already got 10 lakhs normally. Now 10 lakhs minus 62% of 10 lakhs. 10 lakhs minus 62% of 10 lakhs, this is nothing but your 38%, that is 3,80,000. You are not going to pay 10 lakhs. Normally if it is normal goods you have paid differential duty 10 lakhs, but as it is capital goods you are going to pay differential duty. Actual differential duty is 10 lakhs. Actual differential duty is 10 lakhs, but now you are going to deduct it. Deduction of 62% will be there. So differential duty will be the actual differential duty 10 lakhs minus deduction of 62%, which is 3,80,000. This will be the differential import duty, plus interest at 15% on 3,80,000, which means interest will be calculated as 3,80,000 multiplied by 15% multiplied by number of days divided by 365. Multiplied by some number. What is the number of days that you are going to calculate? Number of days will be from the date of importation till the date of actual payment. So you have to calculate the number of days, right? So here obviously if at all ICA wants to ask one of the very tough question, they can easily ask that. They can tell that capital goods are imported at concessional rate, rather than paying 20 lakhs, it has paid only 10 lakhs. They may not give the direct duties, they will give the rate, so you have to calculate it. So they may give 1 crore value, they will tell that import duty was 20%, but he has paid 10%. So differential duty is again same 10 lakhs. And capital goods are used for specific purposes for 5 years 2 months, and thereafter they were sold. Now when you are selling it, differential duty will be paid with interest, but differential duty that is paid is 3,80,000 and not 10 lakhs. Is 3,80,000 and not 10 lakhs. So actual differential duty is 10 lakhs minus deduction. How deduction will be there? Straight line method deduction. For the first year, all the 4 quarters 4% deduction. For the second and third year, each of the quarter 3% deduction. Fourth and fifth year, each quarter 2.5% deduction. From there onwards, 6th year onwards, each quarter, there is no upper limit, each quarter 2% deduction. Each quarter 2% deduction, right? So that will be there, and part of the quarter will be treated as full entire quarter. Part of the quarter will be treated as full entire quarter. And friends, when you talk about customs, you are not going with calendar quarter, you are going with flexible quarters. You are going with flexible quarters. Now friends, the last 2 rules that are left out, small rules, recovery in certain cases. Now Rule 8 and Rule 8A talks about action, penal action, recovery in certain cases. Now what is Rule 8 talking about? Rule 8 is telling that if importer who has availed the benefit of the exemption notification, shall use the imported goods according to the conditions mentioned in the exemption notification. Either he shall use it for manufacturing military uniforms, or he shall re-export or clear it as given in Rule 7. So importer is having either two options. Either he should use fabric for manufacturing military uniforms in our example, or he should re-export or clear the unutilized or defective fabric within as per Rule 7. So he has to do the work within that. Either use fabric for manufacturing military uniforms, or re-export the fabric, or resell the fabric in India as per your Rule 7. So you have to follow that Rule 7. If at all above thing is not done, if you are not complying with the above, Deputy Commissioner or Assessor ACDC having jurisdiction over importer's premises shall take action invoking the bond. He will tell that, okay, you have not used the fabric for manufacturing military uniforms. You have not re-exported or resold the unutilized or defective fabric as per Rule 7. Even in Rule 7, if you are going and telling you have to pay the duty, but you have not gone as per Rule 7, then forceful action, which means that you are hiding something. You are not doing the work as it is required from you, you are hiding something, then ACDC will take an action against you. It may use the bond. When I am telling it may use the bond, if you are not voluntarily paying it, they will use the bond, and what they will do, they will collect the same differential duty. They will collect the same differential duty along with interest. So nothing change. If you are paying it ahead, nothing will happen. You have to pay it with interest. If you are not paying it, the extra point that is given here is they will use the bond. If you are voluntarily paying, you can go under Rule 7. If you are not voluntarily paying, they will use the bond for the differential import duty and interest. Same thing. Differential import duty is equal to duty payable without exemption notification minus duty paid as per exemption notification. Interest at 15% as per section 28AA starting from the date of importation till the date of actual payment. Same thing. If you are paying voluntarily, you go under Rule 7. If you are not paying voluntarily, the ACDC will take action as per Rule 8 invoking the bond, using the bond, that is using the surety or security that you have given. Now, another point that they have said is, a very important point that they have said, another point, that notwithstanding anything specified in these rules related to removal and processing of imported goods for job worker. So, obviously they have spoken about job worker also, but we have already discussed this point. Responsibility shall be of importer. If job worker is not doing the work as promised by the importer, or job worker is not returning back the goods to the importer within 6 months, responsibility of the importer shall be the responsible person for ensuring that the said goods are used as per the exemption notification, and in case of failure, ACDC will take action against the importer, without prejudice to any other action that may be taken under any other law. So ACDC will take action against the importer. One clarification that we already discussed: if job worker is not doing the job work as promised by the importer, or he is not returning the goods within 6 months, who is responsible? Importer is responsible. So ACDC will recover the duty, differential duty with interest from the importer, not from the job worker. And this action will be in line with other actions. Other actions against the importer will also be there. Just because action is taken here under customs law, other actions will also be taken. Other actions will also be taken here. Right. So this point, friends, we have already discussed when we analyze your Rule 6A. Now, friends, the last rule, which is talking about Rule 8A penalty. Rule 8A penalty. Now, this Rule 8A penalty tells that anyone who has contravened, whether the importer or job worker who has not followed the provisions, shall be liable for a penalty which can extend up to maximum 5,000 as per section 158 subsection 2 clause 2. Right. Only place where you have penalty for job worker is Rule 8A. Now, this penal provision is not only applicable for the importer but also applicable for the job worker. If job worker is not doing the work as promised by him or not returning the goods within 6 months, import duty liability will be only on the importer, but there can be penalty which can be collected from the job worker as per section 158 subsection 2 clause 2, which can be maximum of 5,000. Again, this is also without prejudice to any other action that can be taken under any other law. So this doesn't mean that if this penalty is levied, other action will not be taken. Penalty will be there, other actions will also continue. Normally, if job worker is not doing the work as promised by him or not returning back the goods, import duty liability is on the importer. But penalty will be both on importer as well as job worker. Penalty will be both on importer as well as job worker, and maximum penalty can be your 5,000. Friends, this is all about the set of rules which we are calling it as IGCR, import of goods at concessional rate of duty. Right, starting from rule 2 to rule 8A, all the rules we have discussed. Now friends, few case laws, two case laws that are there, small case laws that are there. Both the case laws are of Supreme Court. You are talking about BPL Displays Device Limited, 2004 Supreme Court. Now what happened in this case was, there was loss of imported goods on account of leakage. In this case there was loss on account of leakage. In this case there was loss on account of leakage or shortage. It was not on account of damage. There was no damage. The goods itself came lesser. There was loss due to shortage or leakage of goods. Now Supreme Court said that there is no material distinction that can be drawn between the loss on account of leakage and loss on account of damage. And it said that supposing you have imported fabric, say you are talking about 1 lakh meters. During transportation there is some shortage. You have received only 90,000 meters. You have imported 1 lakh meters of fabric, but you have received only 90,000 meters. So there is loss, there is shortage or leakage. You have received something less. Now Supreme Court said that exemption cannot be denied on 10,000 shortage, because even those 10,000 meters of fabric were intended for using manufacturing of a particular product, but it could not be used so because of shortage, leakage or damage. And Supreme Court further said that here, when you say that fabric should be used for manufacturing military uniforms, or imported goods should be used for manufacturing a particular output, should be read as intended for use. Should be read as intended for use. If I were to take an example, you were about to import 1 lakh units, 1 lakh meters of fabric, 1 lakh meters of fabric, and you promise that you will be using 1 lakh meters of fabric for manufacturing military uniforms. You promised, but finally when you saw you have received only 90,000 units. You have received only 90,000 units, which means only 90,000 units can be actually used for manufacturing military uniforms. Now why there is 10,000 units difference? 10,000 units are either shortage, transportation loss, or leakage or damage, anything. Supreme Court said that we are not going to differentiate technically. Anything, it is shortage, you have received less, or during transportation there was a leakage, or during transportation there was a damage. So the question came is whether this concessional rate, in our example always we have taken that, say import duty rate is at 20%, but you are required to pay import duty at only 10%. Whether this concessional rate is for entire 1 lakh units or it is only for 90,000 units. Assuming that this loss has happened after reaching India. If it has happened before reaching India, levy itself is on 90,000 units. This loss has happened, this shortage or leakage or damage has happened in India. After reaching your place, it has happened in India. If it has happened before reaching, then levy itself is on 90,000 units. We are not discussing. It has this shortage, leakage or damage has happened after the goods are reaching in India, after the goods have been taken by the importer. So this loss or shortage or leakage has happened in India after the goods were cleared. Now Supreme Court said that the benefit of this concessional rate will be given on entire 1 lakh units, not 90,000 units. Though only 90,000 units are actually used for manufacturing military uniforms, 10,000 units are also intended to be used for manufacturing military uniforms. Actual usage in manufacturing military uniforms is 90,000 units. 10,000 units, though they are not actually used, but they were intended for using in manufacturing military uniforms. So benefit will be on entire 1 lakh units. The benefit of reduced rate will be on entire 1 lakh units. 90,000 units which are actually used for manufacturing military uniforms, and 10,000 units which are intended for use in to be used in manufacturing military uniforms. So entire 1 lakh units will get the rate. Friends, I am repeating again, this shortage, leakage or damage of 10,000 units has happened in India after clearance. Otherwise you will have a doubt. If it is before India, levy itself is on 90,000 units. So levy in this case was 1 lakh units. Levy was clearly on 1 lakh units, and collection will be also on 1 lakh units, but collection will be at reduced rate on entire 1 lakh units. Levy is on 1 lakh units because entire 1 lakh units are clear. Collection will be on 1 lakh units, and import duty rate, lesser rate 10% will not only be on 90,000 units which are actually used in manufacturing military uniforms, but also on 10,000 units which were intended to be used for manufacturing military uniforms. Right, so on an entire 1 lakh units, reduced rate benefit will be given. That is the judgment of Supreme Court. Now, second judgment is actually very peculiar. It cannot be applied everywhere. Hanil Era Textiles Limited, 2005 Supreme Court. This first judgment can be applied in all the cases. Second judgment is very rare. It cannot be applied for all the sectors. Now, what happened is, in this scenario, what was happening is, you have imported a particular goods for putting in use of generating power. You have imported capital goods for generation of power, and that power will be used for manufacturing goods which are to be exported. But you had a surplus power which you cannot store, and you have sold it. Now let us analyze this case. Let us read this case, then analyze this case. Now, in absence of restrictive clause in notification that imported goods should be solely or exclusively used for manufacture of goods for export, there is no violation of any condition of the notification where there is a surplus power generated due to unforeseen exigencies. There was surplus generation of powers which was not foreseen, and it is sold in domestic tariff area. Now look at the analysis. It is telling that no import duty can be demanded from the importer for selling the surplus power in domestic tariff area for the following reason. Assume that you have imported capital goods at a concessional rate, and you have said that these capital goods will be used for generating power, which will be used only for manufacturing export goods. You have imported capital goods for generation of power, and you have promised that using this capital goods, the power which will be generated will be used only in manufacturing export goods. So you have imported diesel generator sets, right, and furnace oil. You have imported DG set, capital goods and furnace oil, free of cost for generation of power, and you have promised that that power will be used only for manufacturing goods which are going to be exported. But there was a surplus power which came out due to unforeseen exigencies, and the surplus power was sold within India because power cannot be stored. Unlike other goods, you cannot store the power. So as I said in the beginning, the first judgment can be used in all cases. You can use the first judgment if at all after clearance of goods. 10,000 units are after clearance, which means levy is on 1 lakh units. 1 lakh units are imported, 1 lakh units were cleared. After clearance, there was 10,000 units shortage, leakage or damage, right? So reduced rate, reduced import duty rate, 10% reduced import duty rate will not only be for 90,000 units which are used for used for manufacturing a particular product or providing a particular service, but also for 10,000 units which were intended to be used for manufacturing a particular product or providing a particular service, right? That can be used in all cases. This is a very special scenario. It is only can be used only in special case. It cannot be applied in all cases. So you have imported diesel generator set, capital goods and furnace oil at reduced rate. In this case, free of cost. Free of import duty means 100% exemption notification. And you have promised that this capital goods, DG set, diesel generator set and furnace oil will be used for generating power, and that power will be used only for manufacturing goods which are exported. But suddenly you had surplus power which was not within your control. That surplus power was not within your control, and as you cannot store the power, you have sold in India. So Actually here you violated the condition. Now the surplus power, you were not able to use it for manufacturing export goods. You are not in a position to use it for manufacturing export goods because already you had surplus power. Already some power was used in manufacturing export goods. Now you have surplus power, and as you cannot store the power, as you are not in a position to store the power, you had no option but to sell it. So Supreme Court said that though strictly speaking this condition is violated, but this is not within your control. This is not within your control. You cannot control it. This is not within your control. This is not within your control. Therefore, forget about this point. Though you have violated the exemption notification that power which was generated using DG set and Furnace oil is sold in India, but you had no option. The moment you had surplus power, you had no option but to sell in India. Majority of the power that was generated using DG set and Furnace oil was used only in manufacturing export goods. But the surplus power, you cannot do anything. I cannot store that surplus power. You had no option. It is not within your control. Therefore, you sold it. Therefore, Supreme Court said that we understand your situation. No action will be taken. No differential duty will be collected. So, this is a very special case. Can it be applied in all cases? No. It is a very peculiar case. It can be applied only in such cases where you cannot store the goods, like in case of power. It cannot be applied in all the cases. It cannot. The second case law, Hanil Era Textiles Limited 2005 Supreme Court, cannot be applied in all the cases. Cannot be applied in all the cases. Whereas BPL display devices limited 2004 Supreme Court you can apply the same analogy in all the cases. Friends, that is all about your IGCR rules, that is Customs Import of Goods at Concessional Rate of Duty Rules 2017. We are done with this entire understanding.